Hello, everybody, and welcome to Craftsy's Christmas in July. My name is Leah. I will be your host today, and we are going to help you start your holiday handmaking early this year and ahead of your gift giving with a bunch of festive patterns, projects, recipes, and more all month long. Now, you can download any of these free holiday patterns right now by clicking the link in the description of today's video, or you can scan the QR code that you see on your screen. And you will also find the entire schedule for all of the future live events that we will be having this month in July. Now, also from me, we have an amazing prize to give away. It's displayed right here, and I can tell you it is beautiful and sleek. This is the Stella 2 Crafting Light, and you can enter to win yours by July 17th, 2023 by clicking the link in the description, or again, you can scan the QR code that you see on your screen. So you'll be able to take a good look at this throughout today's entire event and again get the chance to win yours. That's the Stella 2 crafting lamp right here for you to see. Now that's about enough from me to get us started, because today we're bringing somebody to share some knowledge with you. We are joined by ZJ Humbach as we kick off this Christmas in July celebration, and ZJ will be sharing her ultimate Christmas planning guide for a stress-free holiday season, or as stress-free as we can get. ZJ is a professional quilter and long arm quilter and has 20 years of experience. She is an instructor for our TN Marketing sewing, quilting, and serging classes, former editor for Quilter Newsletter Magazine, technical editor for 2 long arm quilting books, and a freelance writer for several quilting magazines. So have no fear, you are in good hands for all of these tips today from ZJ. ZJ, welcome. Start us out with a little intro about yourself and what you're excited to bring to the table today.
Hey, Leah, welcome. And greetings from Colorado. It's a little rainy here today, so I hope we don't get any thunder and lightning during the presentation. I just want to let everybody know first up that my family does celebrate Christmas, so what most of the things that I'll be showing you are from our personal Christmas collections, but that doesn't mean that they can't be used for other holidays. With just a little bit of modification, you can certainly use them for Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, winter solstice, or any of the other wonderful celebrations that we have during the winter season. I will tell you this is going to be a very fast-paced presentation. I just want to give you as many ideas as possible to spark your creativity and get you jazzed about getting a jump start on Christmas, even if it is July.
Yes, indeed. Now, my other job here, besides just giving you all this fantastic information about things that you can expect in the month of July, is to keep an eye on your questions. So while ZJ is taking us through the presentation and we are going to work through a ton of content of tips that she has prepared for us, I'm also going to be able to see some questions from you, our viewers, coming in live. And there will be time at the end of the presentation to get to as many of those questions as possible. So feel free to drop those in, or also drop in some ideas that you have. What are some projects that you're getting started in July for the upcoming holiday season towards the end of the year? We love to see those. We love to see where you're viewing from. So go ahead and take a look at that chat box. Feel free to use it throughout today's entire presentation, and we will get to your questions when we have a moment. But first, we've got some that I know ZJ wants to cover right off the bat. So the first question is pretty basic, ZJ. When do you suggest getting started for these Christmas or other holiday projects?
I like to get started as early as possible. Doesn't always happen, but that's the goal. Prior to becoming a long arm quilter, I was an officer in the United States Air Force, and I had 2 boys who were involved with competition hockey. So my life was go, 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 go. So when we would go camping, that was the main time that I would take things along with me to do, or involve the boys while we were camping on summer trips. And also, now that I have granddaughters, when I babysit the granddaughters, I get them involved in crafting, and they're 9 and 7 right now, and we started when there were probably about 3 on some of these crafts. So I will clue you in on what's good for different ages as we go through.
All right, so I do see in here that you have a camping setup for some of your crafting, and it's a very important question here. Where do you craft when you're camping, and how do you organize your tools and materials for a situation where maybe space is limited or you're traveling and things like that?
Well, thanks to the Air Force, I was on the go a lot with a lot of travel, and I would take quilting with me and quilt in my hotel room, take a portable machine. The hotel staff loved it to follow my progress every day when I had the longer trips. So I learned how to compartmentalize things so I could literally quilt on the go or craft on the go. I've got some photos here to show you my setup. This is, if you look in the back where the blue truck is, just behind it, we have a fifth wheel, which is wonderful. It has an awning and a big dining table in the back end of the camper. So I can either sew inside if it's rainy, I can sew under the awning. But my favorite place is this little screen room that my husband bought me for a birthday gift one year. Let me show you the sewing machine bag that I pack. I've got my sewing machine in there. I've got my iron. I've got a lamp, and I've got my go bag. And my go bag is a notions bag. And in the notions bag, I pack whatever I need just for camping. I don't take a lot of extraneous. I put in a bobbin winder, the little box there that you see with the clear lid sitting up, that holds literally all my threads, my seam ripper, my point turner, scissors, odds and ends like that. In the front, you can see the little blue thing there is my pin basket. I've got the little container for the water for the iron. I've got my rotary cutter container in there. I've got always extension cords, my rulers, and most important of all, I make sure I take the owner's manual for my sewing machine, plus extra needles and the assorted attachments for it. And as you can see, I work at the picnic table, and this next slide shows you the setup. I keep 2 different cutting mats in the camper along with my ruler, and I can go ahead and cut outside. Now, a lot of times I'll pre-prep everything and not cut at the campground, but just depending on the project. I don't like to cut long things like the borders for a quilt at the campground. It's just not as accurate. I've got a larger table at home, but I can sure get a lot done. If we get out of the photos there and go back to my sewing room, this is the quilt. You could see the fabrics on the picnic table. This was just a couple weeks ago. I got that all cut out, and when I came home, I pieced it and just finished getting the rows sewed together last night. So I'm well on my way for this little quilt for one of my granddaughters.
It looks fantastic. I know that we have a lot of viewers that are interested in upcoming quilting projects as well. I do want to ask you, kind of as a follow-up before we move away from the camping topic or perhaps traveling for some non-campers out there, what do you find are the best sorts of crafts to actually do at the campground? Is there anything that you kind of tip to the side and do in other places? What's your focus when you're at the campground?
Mostly small projects. I do almost anything except for machine embroidery. The machines are too big, and I don't like to take that much bulk with me. And besides, I think my husband would throw me out if I tried to take all those machines. It's also a great time to, if you really are ambitious, and I've never quite gotten there yet, but this is my goal someday, is to address the Christmas cards at the campground. It's just nice to sit outside and do that. And the kids are great. They can put on the return address labels. They can put the stamps on. They can lick the envelopes and stuff them. So put those kiddos to work.
Absolutely. Make it more of a family activity. We are about to move away from the camping and traveling. Any final thoughts before we do that, ZJ?
Nope. Just
all
pack
right.
You'd be surprised how much you can take with you.
Perfect. Another reminder from me before we move on, if you're just joining us and we're not here, we have a fantastic chat box for you to utilize. You can send in any questions that you have for ZJ, tips and tricks for upcoming Christmas and other winter holiday projects that you might be getting a head start on for our Christmas in July. And there is also a really valuable link in there. I talked about it at the beginning, but it's also in the chat box. So if you are trying to enter to win this lovely Stella 2 light that you can see here on the table with me, you can either scan the QR code that you see on your screen, or there is now a link in the chat box for you to follow as well for that. Now we're going to move on to a more home decor kind of topic here with ZJ next. So in general, ZJ, what kind of ideas can you share for home decor items that people might be wanting to craft?
Well, kind of moving back to the campground a little bit while you're out there, pick up some pine cones. Pine cones, and I think we've got a photo of that, are wonderful. To the left on the photo are the traditional ones from your ponderosa pines, and on the right, those are fir cones. And the fir cones are wonderful to hot glue onto a styrofoam wreath and make a beautiful wreath for your door. I also like to put pine cones in a little basket. This is a simple napkin that I just serged around the edge and made it two-sided. And you can put potpourri in there. You can put pine cones in and put a little bit of essential oil on it. It's beautiful, quick, easy home deck, and it's also a very nice hostess gift. I also like to do pillows. This was one that I did for Quilter's newsletter several years ago. It's just 4 log cabin blocks that were left over, and I sewed them together, added a couple of borders, and put a backing on it, and voila, you've got a pillow. And on this particular one, I used a metallic silver thread to kind of make it pop and make it more festive. Besides quilted pillows, another thing I like to do, I love to do embroidery when I travel. Or when I'm at the campground. It's not something I can pick up and it's easy to do. This was one that I worked on for quite a while. I think it took several years just doing it in the summer, but I decided to make it into a pillow, and that's a good use for your embroidered projects. I also want to show you some other home deck items. These are ones that my sister-in-law did. She is this queen of crafting. I mean, she really can do over-the-top things, but there are a lot of patterns out there, and this has been in our family for many years now, and is one of my favorites, the little rocking horse. She also did this mouse that's adorable that you can hang on the wall to greet people. And this is a little bit simpler. If you really study it, it really isn't all that hard. But it's not something you want to rush. So that's why I say get started in July. And then there's this cute little tree that she and two of my other sister-in-laws worked on. And it's quilted and just adorable. But again, you just need time and convince yourself you can do it. It's really not that hard. Get a good pattern, follow the instructions, and before you know it, you're going to have these wonderful family heirlooms to cherish.
Those look fantastic. I love those designs, especially that tree that just stands up for itself. That is lovely. We're going to move away from things that stand up on their own, and I really like this, ZJ, you came up with. Instead of deck the halls, we're going to deck the walls. So what would you like to share with us as ideas to hang on the walls as we're getting festive?
I like to do wreaths. The first one I'm going to show you is I used to teach classes at the local sewing center, and to get everybody used to the embroidery capabilities of their machine, I came up with this design that's a combination of applique, embroidery, and also using some of the stitches on the machine. It was a fun little project. We embellished it with some ribbons, but the easy thing to do is put it in a hoop and then just hot glue some lace or eyelet or whatever around the edge, a bow and a bell, and you're all set to go. Another one that I like is this hooped bear. This was all applique, and I did it on pre-quilted fabric. This was before I started long arming. I cheated and used quilted fabric, but it's just something simple. It's in a hoop, doesn't take up a lot of room when you pack your decorations away. The next one is using paper plate holder. My older son made this in school one year. I think he was about 7, and brought it home, and he was so happy. And the reason I'm showing it to you is because this is a great project for your kids to do. Paper plate holder, cut out a paper plate, let them use some of the fancy pinking shears and go to town, and they are so happy to see it. This son is now going to be, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail here. He's going to be 46 in September, and I still treasure this and hang it up every year. It makes me smile. Another option is fabric wreaths. This one is just cut yourself a pattern for holly leaves, stuff them, sew down the center, and just hot glue them onto a piece of cardboard covered in fabric, add a few pom-pom balls, and you can either use ribbon or make a fabric one like I did. And this is a wonderful 3D wreath that I've had for years and I absolutely love. I also like these kids wreaths. These are some that my grandkids did this last year. I just went to the local craft store, bought a couple of wreaths. They were maybe $3 to $5 each. They were plain plastic pine wreaths. And I had a bunch of pine cones that the girls had picked up at the campground last year. I have a craft box that has all kinds of supplies like the apples and the little ornaments and ribbons. And then we went to the craft store and they picked out these little doggies, and each one designed their own wreath. And they're each a little different, but they were so proud to take those home and show their parents and have them hanging up. So it doesn't take much and everybody can get in on the fun. I also, as a quilter, have to have my quilts. These were 2 little ones that I designed for Quilters newsletter that appeared in their special issue publication for 2 years. And these were just free-form blocks. I just cut the shapes and played around with it and came up with a design. And you can do the same thing too. Pick your favorite holiday theme and just put some blocks together. Or you could do paper piecing. This was a class that I took many years ago when I was first learning paper piecing, and put it together as a little wall quilt. And all of these deck our walls every year at Christmas.
Those look so festive and lovely, and like you said, very attainable to just adjust based on what holiday you would like to decorate for. We've got another tradition coming up we're going to talk about next here, and these are Christmas stockings. So ZJ, do you want to share some special traditions and ideas as far as Christmas stockings are concerned?
Oh, yes, the stockings are the best. Let me give you our family's tradition. My husband's family, and I thought this was brilliant, and I have used it ever since. They would fill the socks, and when the children were asleep, they would put the socks on the bed, and the children couldn't get up to go see the Christmas tree until Mom and Dad got the coffee and the first cinnamon roll, and the socks kept them busy. We took it a step further, and everything that went in the sock got wrapped, so it took longer for the kids to open the socks. And now that tradition apparently is carrying through to the granddaughters. The first sock I want to show you here is an oldie but a goodie. This is my husband's sock, and it was made when he was a baby. He has a twin sister, and a neighbor made these socks for them, and I think they're just cute as could be. Well, when our younger son came along, we were stationed up in Alaska. We had just gotten there. Next slide, please. And it was right near Christmas, like the week of, and I went to the local fabric store there in Alaska, and they had no fabric. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do for socks? So these are felt, and we just kind of had fun with the design. My older son was about 7 at the time, and he helped me with designing them and coming up with ideas. And Stephen's baby sock still hangs up today. But when Stephen was born, my sister-in-law, Dave's twin sister, made Stephen a sock to match his father's, and she has since made matching socks for the girls, so that family tradition is being carried on. Well, my older son, like I said, he's 46 now. He decided these were a little too cutesy, and a couple years ago said, "Mom, come on, you're a quilter, make us some quilted socks." So quilted socks it was, and these were some that I pieced together, and I put them on the long arm, put a swirly pattern on it with, again, metallic thread, and now we have a little bit different sock for our family. So it just shows that whether you're using corduroy, felt, quilt fabric, whatever, anything works for socks. Just have fun with it and be creative.
Amazing. Before we move to the tree, which is a big topic for Christmas, another note for me, I just want to say hello to some of our viewers that have been watching. Quite a few people just popped in a hello. We have Kathy from Kansas, Cindy from Oklahoma, a different Kathy from Texas, Loretta from Titusville, Florida, Adonbu from Nigeria, so we are global, Lisa from Italy, Lady Blue coming in from Virginia, US, and Jody from Washington State. So we've got lots of people out here watching, and reassurance from me, I know there has been the question, will this be rewatchable? The answer is yes. So you can come back to this link, you can watch this if you didn't get to see this from the top of the hour and you missed some of ZJ's tips, or you just want to revisit them later, this will be here for you. So don't fear, if you miss something, come back another time and it will be here for you. With that said, it is time to move on to the Christmas tree, specifically Christmas tree skirts. So ZJ, what ideas do you have for these tree skirts?
Well, I'm a quilter, so the first one I'm going to show you is a pieced skirt that I did for Quilter's newsletter. This is a carpenter's star pattern. I didn't do anything special. It's basically a 48-inch quilt, and I trimmed the edges to give it the diagonals, and there you go. And then I quilted the heck out of it. So that was one, and it's very scrappy. It used up a bunch of scraps that I had. And in fact, some of those scraps are on the quilt that you see behind me now. The next one is a whole cloth quilt. I used bridal satin, put it on the long arm machine, quilted it, and then cut the edges on the diagonal. You can take fabric to your favorite long arm quilter, have her put it on, and this particular one was a beautiful snowflake pattern, and I did it in a gold metallic thread, so it really shimmered under the Christmas tree. You can do it with a print fabric on the back, and then you can have a reversible tree skirt. Another option is to use felt, corduroy, whatever, and do applique similar to what the socks were. And you can have a very festive tree under your skirt, or skirt under your tree. Okay.
I see that you had some details included for those photos that we just saw. Did you want to talk about any of the specific measurements or anything on those?
For a 7 to 9 foot tree, I like to use a 48-inch skirt or even a little bit bigger. If you have a shorter tree, I recommend a 36-inch tree skirt.
Awesome. That's useful for somebody like me. My tree is very small. So,
and then you can go even smaller if it's a tabletop one. You might need about an 18-inch one.
It's lovely to have a pencil tree until we tried that big skirt for the first year, and then we had to shrink it down.
It all has to be in proportion. That's the secret.
Exactly. All right, we're going to move up from the floor onto the tree proper and talk ornaments next. So what do you like to do for your trees, EJ?
Ornaments are my obsession. I love ornaments. I was stationed in Germany, and I had so much fun buying German ornaments, and all over Europe, everywhere I'd go, I'd collect ornaments. And it was a fun way to incorporate some of the world in our home. And then we were stationed in Canada, and we did the same. So, and quite a few from Alaska, Texas, you name it. So I have an eclectic tree that reflects our family. I also love it when people give me gifts, or I make them as a gift to send, because they're very simple, they're easy to do, they mean a lot, and they create memories Plus, they're inexpensive if you have to ship them. So we're going to go through a whole bunch of photos here very, very quickly. The first one came from my brother-in-law and sister-in-law. This is Dave's brother. He went to the family cabin, tried to find it after years, didn't know where it was, found it and made these ornaments and sent them to the rest of the family. And these are just photos that he took. And anybody can do photos, whether it's children, pets, you name it. I think that's a wonderful, thoughtful gift. Next, embroidery. Got to do that embroidery. I did a bunch of these on the machine. They were mostly for classes that I was teaching at the time. The center lower level is a hand embroidered one that my sister-in-law did for me. And the two on either side of it, a dear friend of mine did as embroidered standalone ornaments. So if you have an embroidery machine, oh my gosh, put it to work, because it's embroidering while you're doing other things. I'd like to show you some embroidery packets that I like to use. Let me switch back to me for a moment, if we could. Yeah, when I'm traveling, I like to use, oops, let me see if I can get it on the camera here. I always go the wrong way. Packets, and the packets have everything you need. It's got the canvas, it's got your threads, it's got the needle, everything but the scissor and the hoop. It's nice and flat, so you can pack it in your suitcase. And I love these little ones because they just tuck in anywhere. And I do them on the plane. I do it sitting out at the campground, at the hotel, riding in the car. They're great. And then they can turn into Christmas ornaments or gifts. All right, we started to show the paper ornaments there. These are origami that my boys did when they were little. And yes, I'm a sentimental fool. They end up in my Christmas tree, and they actually look great nestled in there. Even the frog, I couldn't leave the frog out. So origami is a fun project for the kids. There's all kinds of books and kits at the craft stores. Get them involved in it. It really puts their brains to work and their fingers. Next, I want to show you some felt ornaments. These were ones that Stephen made in school when he was little. They end up in the tree. These are real simple. You can just sew the edges of the socks and let the kids go to town with glitter, or they can decorate them however they wish. The center one is kind of a, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a rubber one that they got from the craft store that they poked out of the sheet, and then the girls were able to decorate it. And these were things they were able to do when they were like 3-4 years old, and they were just so happy when they ended up on the tree. Another thing that I've come to treasure are the dough ornaments. The three to the left were made by my older son. These are a salt dough ornament, and they have lasted since almost 40 years. So that's pretty good longevity. And the other two are cinnamon ones. He made the star, and my younger granddaughter made the little gingerbread man this last year, and she was so proud giving it to me and just so excited when she saw it hanging on the tree. There are a lot of recipes on the internet. The salt dough, the cinnamon dough is really easy to work with. Highly recommend you do it. And you poke the hole in the top of the ornament with a straw, and after it's dried, then you can put your ribbon or hooks or whatever you want to put through it to hang it. I also have wreaths and trees that go onto the tree. The trees there are wooden that were painted and then just attached a piece of rope. The two wreath ones, the one on the right, you can buy the wreath like that, and then we added the ribbon and the little bear. That was when the boys were probably 5. And then Christian made the one on the left in school, and it's just a can lid so that it's raised on the edge, and then it goes down flat in the center, and you just cut a hole out of the plastic lid and start wrapping string or yarn, and then every so often put a red bead. The next one shows some adorable bells that Maddie and Taylor made for us as Christmas gifts and gave to us. And I thought those were really cute. The macaroni ones, everybody's got macaroni. Why not buy some fun shapes, give the kids some glue, and they turn into ornaments. And those were some that Chris had made when he was in school, probably about 5, 6 years old. So you can tell these last if you wrap them carefully each year. Probably my favorite are the baskets. We did these one year. I found little baskets at the craft shop, and I let boys find different things to put into it. We put in a little cotton, a little bit of pine cones, our favorite thing, some apples, a little bear, and put some ribbon on it and decorated them up. And these look cute as a bug in a Christmas tree. My other favorite that has been wonderful for the generations are the ornaments made out of the beads. The crystal beads or the wooden beads work great. The little beads in the center lower portion of the picture there, they're called a tri-bead, and that's what these are made out of. You use a pipe cleaner, bend it to shape, start putting the beads on. Just make sure at the very end that you push it back so that the beads don't fall off, and then you can add ribbon if you wish. And these, because it's a crystal plastic, just glisten on the tree and look very, very pretty. We also have some beaded ornaments here. The imagination took off. My boys were Lego maniacs and loved Lincoln Logs and anything like that. So they weren't content with just doing candy canes. They had to go on and create other things, which I thought these were pretty good use of the imagination. And a couple years ago when Christian came home, he's now an engineer, no surprise, he sat down with the granddaughters and helped them learn how to make the beaded ornaments. So it's a family tradition that keeps on, and I don't know who was having more fun, the girls or him. And then, of course, you can do beaded chains, pick up these beads at the hobby shop, and just let the kids go to town. I don't go much more than about 36 inches for the string because it can get tangled. I like to use either a 12 weight thread, which is the heaviest weight thread you can use, or better yet, use dental floss because it won't break. And then you can tie the strings together and you're all set for your tree. And the children love seeing these sorts of things on the tree. You can also do paper chains. We have a separate tree for the kids, and paper chains have always been on them. So, like I said, lots of ideas. Your sky's the limit. Have fun.
Yes, there are some people in the chat that are enthusiastic about the dough ornaments idea, impressed with the longevity of those dough ornaments. There is a question I would like to slide in right now because it's specific to the dough. Sandra wants to know if you have good tips for packing those away so that they're out of the reach of critters or any other environmental problems with those.
I've just got a one of the plastic boxes you get like at Home Depot or Lowe's that's got the dividers in it. Mm-hmm. But I wrap everything, I'm a quilter, in batting. Or you can make a little quilted bag and put them in. But I also, on the batting, I write what it is and fragile because I don't want somebody to grab it and boom, there it goes. So yeah, that's what I do. And they've lasted, like I said, 40 plus years.
Very clever. I love that idea. I'm going to have to use that for mine. All right, we've talked tree. We're going to move on to other aspects of gift giving. We're going to talk wrapping and cards here next. So we're going to start with the wrapping. ZJ, can you hit us with some ideas of what you can do for wrapping papers and things like that?
Oh, sure. Use the kid power. Get some butcher paper, get paper bags, get easel paper, even construction paper, and let them go to town out on that picnic table or outside with paint, crayons, markers, stamps, stickers. They will amaze you with their creativity, and it's just precious, precious paper. I also like to use gift bags. Gift bags are so easy. You can cut the fabric to the size of your gift, cut it to any size you want, sew the sides, do a narrow edge or serge the top, turn it over and then for about an inch, and then wrap it with some ribbon, and you're done. If you're going to use it for a wine bottle, I recommend making the bag maybe about 6 to 8 inches longer than the wine bottle, so you can fold it back down so that when you tie the ribbon on, it will catch the part that's been folded down, and it looks really wonderful. If you want, you can catch the ribbon in the seam, and then it's even easier to tie. So I love to do gift bags. You can get really fancy and do a little channel that you run your ribbon through and bring it out, but sometimes that's too much work, especially if I'm in a hurry. So I just tie them with some ribbon.
Now oh, go ahead.
You first.
Oh, I think I was going to lead us right into what you're about to start in on, so I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. My son, the engineer, had a project with GM over in Japan that involved the Germans, the Japanese, and the Americans. And they were working on a hydrogen fuel cell car that debuted with the G8. So while he was there, I said, buy your mother some fabric. Japanese fabric's wonderful. So he searched all over, but he said with the language barrier, he just wasn't getting anywhere. And he stopped at a little shop at the base of Mount Fuji. And as he was walking out, he said he saw the price of the fabric and said, Mom, I love you, but not that much. He said fabric was horrendously expensive. And he was walking out and he saw a basket with this Japanese furoshiki in it, which he thought were napkins, but they aren't. These particular ones are about 19 and a half inches. They come in all sizes, even up to 36 by 36. And they aren't napkins. You can see it's got a little tiny, tiny narrow edge. I turned it back so you could see it. These are Japanese wrapping fabrics. And what you do is you put your gift in the center and you tie the opposite corners, tuck them in, and tie then the other opposite corners on the diagonal and make a bundle. Or you can bundle it up with ribbon. Well, if you don't get to Japan, you can make your own, and I highly recommend using batik because it's reversible and it doesn't ravel. So if you don't have a serger or don't want to do a tiny edge on it, you're just fine to take some pinking shears and give it a pretty edge. Or you can serge the edges or turn it over. You can also use cloth napkins, or if you want, and you wrap several gifts in these, now you have a nice set of napkins that you're giving that were actually the wrapping, and now we don't have any waste. So I think that's a wonderful option.
Oh, the no waste idea is really nice. I like that a lot. Let's move on to once you've wrapped, once you have your gift contained, what about cards and tags? What ideas do you have for that?
The easiest thing that we do a lot of times, well, first of all, you probably are getting a lot of tags and stamps and so forth and cards from a lot of the charities. I find I haven't had to buy cards in years because I get a lot of lovely cards from the charities. But the other thing that we do if we run short is find a nice motif on your wrapping paper, cut it twice as big, fold it over, and you've got an instant little gift card. You can cut it with pinking shears if you want to make it fancy and put a hole in it or tape it on, or like I said, put the hole in some ribbon. And the kids love to design those or have them draw some tags for you. I also like to do quilted postcards. I learned about these when I was working at Quilter's Newsletter. Carolyn Reardon had written 2 books on quilted postcards. She was the editor-in-chief for Quilt Maker magazine, and I learned to do these, and they are fun, they are easy, and her books have a lot of different patterns for all the holidays in there. And the other thing you can do is pick a piece of fabric, cut out a nice motif, and just stitch around and embellish it however you want. And you can actually mail these postcards instead of a Christmas card, or you could make a smaller version and use it for a gift tag.
I'm going to
And
see. Oh,
I had done a class several years ago for the National Quilter Circle on the quilted postcards. So if you want to see how it's done rather than just reading in a book, you can always take that class.
all right, I want to actually remind people that are watching, so the chat box is not just for your questions, which we will get to towards the end of our time here today, but there is also a link in there, first of all, for your chance to win this Stella lamp that we talked about earlier, but also the class that ZJ just mentioned. There's going to be a link to that class that you can check out that will be in the chat box as well. So if that's something that sparked your interest, that link is going to be available for you in the chat. ZJ, if you're ready, it's time to move on to packaging for shipping, a very important but probably overlooked part of gift giving. What are your tips for that?
First of all, you need good boxes.
Yes.
Boxes are key to this. So I've got a couple, and with my son living back in Boston, I send his favorite is banana nut bread, and we use shoe boxes and wrap the bread in plastic wrap, then in aluminum foil, then bubble wrap it or wrap it, pack the edges with batting. I think you see a theme here with my quilting, and ship it 2-day priority. If it goes any longer, the bread comes out stale. For cookies, I've found that I look for boxes. So the one on the left, you can see the little hearts that I cut out. The girls and I had made, this was actually for Valentine's Day. Our family tradition is to make heart cookies and decorate them. And we found that this Moose Crunch or Moose Munch tube was perfect for the cookies, and they stacked in, and we separated them with the bubble wrap, and they arrived safe and sound for Chris. And as you can see, he gave the box back. I'm an avid Boston Bruins fan, and I recently got a mug, and I thought, my son's a Rangers fan, so we don't get along in that regard. I had bought some alphabet cookie cutters and cut out the words "Go Bruins," packed the cookies in the box, and took it back to him when I went to a game with him to see the Bruins and the Rangers play. So I brought the box back because it's a heavy-duty, perfect box that's just the right size for a stack of cookies. There are a lot of other things you can use besides boxes. There's a ton of tins that you can find in the craft stores. One of the things I like to use if I'm sending or storing those large hooped items that we talked about, the different wreaths and so forth, go to your local pizza store and get a clean pizza box, and it fits them perfectly. And that's great for shipping. So I think the biggest thing is just use things that aren't going to be really super fragile. If they are, wrap them each cookie or several cookies together in bubble wrap, batting, anything to keep the box from shaking. That's when they get broken. And we've had really, really good luck with that. And then ship early, because you don't want it to sit in the post office over the holidays.
It does get busy quickly. Before you know it, it's the height of shipping season.
And it's nice to have those cookies and breads early in December, so you don't get, all this mass at Christmas. And then what do you do with it? You get cookied out.
I agree. Get in there early and everything will be fresh and lovely right at the beginning of the month of December. ZJ, do you have anything else that you want to touch on? I think we're going to have some time for a few questions here, but I want to give you the floor before we dig into the chat box.
I think the best tips I can give you is what we do for surviving the holidays. Start early, delegate. You don't have to do it all. You are certainly not, Architectural Digest that has to have a perfect home for Christmas. Involve everybody and pick and choose what you want to do. Maybe each year you do something different, and only do what's special. If it's not special, don't bother with it. I want you to make memories that are going to be remembered as fun, and that's what your kids are going to remember. You don't want them to remember it as a stressful time of year or watch out, mom's on a tear. So just have fun with it. And I think the biggest tip is jumpstart it early and just do a little bit throughout the year, and then you'll be ready. And each year you can add something new.
Those are great tips. I'm sure we're going to get a few more as you answer a few questions for us, ZJ. But first, I want to have a suggestion brought up from Jody in the chat box. This is not a question. This is a hot tip from Jody. Jody buys a giant roll of brown paper, so on the roll that you would get at a hardware store, and it lasts for years. So you can use it to line your floor during projects, but also to decorate it, as you had suggested, ZJ, and use it as wrap. So it's very cheap, very low bar to entry there, but you can kind of make of it what you need it for. And like Jody said, it seems to last for years. So a really great hot tip there. Do you have anything to add to that, ZJ?
Actually, a few years ago during the pandemic, we were watching the girls, and Chris couldn't come home for Christmas, and he lives in an apartment. And I said, well, what can we do for you? And he said, you need to make me a Christmas tree. I'm like, what? He goes, make a tree for my refrigerator. And we took the brown wrapping paper, drew it out, and I let the girls go to town with ribbon, wrapping paper, crayons, anything they could think of. And they made a refrigerator-sized tree for Uncle Chris. We rolled it up real carefully in a roll, shipped it off, and he loved his tree, and they had a blast doing it. So don't underestimate the power of brown wrapping paper.
You can always decorate it. All right, we've got a pretty good question that will take us all the way back to when you were talking about taking your crafting out to the campsite or really anything outdoors. So our viewer, whose username is C, the letter C, is curious to know, don't most sewing machine manufacturers recommend not sewing outside? What do you say to something like that, ZJ? What kind of care do you take to make sure that the elements aren't going to come after you?
Well, you don't sew in the rain. You're going to sew inside if that's the case. I've been sewing for years, and I've been trained with Pfaff, Janome, and Baby Lock machines from the factory. And I've never heard any manufacturer, at least those manufacturers, say you can't sew outside. I think the biggest thing is to make sure your area is clean. Brush it off frequently for lint. Don't leave it outside overnight. Bring it back in or put it in the car, and just use common sense. And you're going to have fun. And your machine's tougher than what we give them credit for. They're pretty tough beasts.
So maybe don't bring it literally into water with you.
No. Not on the boat. In the camper, maybe, but not in the boat.
Perfect. Ooh. Let's see, we've got another hot tip here coming in from Susan this time. Susan, going back to the packaging materials, can use new clean washcloths or hand towels as packing materials because you can always use new ones. So if you receive something like that, that'd be great.
Excellent.
Susan, what a great idea. And keeping with that lower waist theme that you had already mentioned, ZJ. Laureen's got something that's just come in and says, apparently you can sometimes get rolled medical paper of the type that goes on the beds if you go to doctor's offices and things. She worked at the University of Saskatchewan, and a person could buy this at the medical college supply store. So maybe another option, if you're not a brown paper fan, maybe that it's thinner and more crinkly. Maybe you like that texture a little bit more.
I think that'd be great.
Any of these things that you can literally hang on a wall, right? And pull off what you need. These are great ideas. We have a few minutes left, so I'm going to give our viewers another minute or so to get any last minute questions in. While that's happening, before I ask ZJ for final thoughts, I have a few. So I want to make sure to remind you all, especially if you weren't with us at the beginning, you can join us all month long. Craftsy is doing Christmas in July the whole month of July. And you are going to have access for live tutorials of the free holiday projects that we'll be featuring. You can download any of those free patterns right now by clicking the link in the description, or you can scan the QR code that you see on your screen. And you also will still have a chance to win what I have had next to me over here. This is our Stella 2 crafting light. This is something that you can enter as long as you do it by July 17th of this year, 2023, by clicking the link in the description, or again, you see a QR code on your screen, and that will be available for you to enter for your chance to win. I can tell you, having it next to me this entire time, I can see and feel how much space there is to work under the lighting element. So this is something that I'm sure would be a great addition to your crafting, and you can go ahead and enter by using the QR code or the link in the description. A couple other things that are in the chat box, the link to the class that ZJ mentioned if you were interested in that. That is making quilted postcards, and there are also some of the other links that I mentioned, not just in the description, but in the chat box. I'm going to take a last peek here for any last second questions. I'm not seeing any yet, so I'm going to give ZJ the floor. Any final thoughts you have, anything you want to send us off into this month of Christmas in July crafting, or anything that's come to mind, ZJ? The floor is yours for a few minutes here.
Okay, I've got two more things for you. When it comes to quilts for Christmas, think smaller, like the little wall quilts that I showed you. In fact, my former daughter-in-law used to put them on an end table instead of hanging them up, and they looked really cute there. I thought that was pretty clever. The other thing is small lap quilts are wonderful, and they make up a lot faster, and they aren't as overwhelming for you. The quilt behind me, if you notice, there are plain blocks in there, and then I just did the rail quilt with the three strips, and that way I could make it whatever size I wanted. When you have a plain block in between, you aren't having to match as many seams. It goes a lot faster, and it's quick and easy. The other tip that I have is Christmas morning, one of our tradition has been cinnamon rolls. I have a wonderful recipe that I found from Fleischmann's Yeast. They have free recipe books that you can write in and get or call them. And there's one for 60-minute rolls, and I turned it into cinnamon rolls. And then we have the rolls for dinner. But the trick with the cinnamon rolls is you take a piece of cardboard, cover it with foil, and you want a fairly large one, maybe about 18 by 13. And you put your cinnamon rolls on it in the shape of a tree. So you start with one at the top, then two, then three, and so forth, and then a couple for the trunk of the tree. Frost the cinnamon rolls, put a little bit of green sprinkles on them. I usually put a cherry in the center with a little bit of icing for a leaf, so it looks like holly berries. And it is as festive as can be, and everybody loves it. And it will be a new Christmas tradition for you. And you can get it, set out while the kids are opening those socks on the bed. So have fun with the holidays, whether it's Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, winter solstice, whatever you celebrate. The whole idea is to have joy and make memories with your families. And I wish you all the best.
Oh, that was fantastic. Cinnamon rolls are part of my family's traditions as well. So I just could get a sense memory of smelling that. And we have not done the Christmas tree design, so that'll have to be something that we add the next time I go home and visit my parents for Christmas. And an additional chat box feature just dropped in there. We have a link to a free cinnamon roll recipe. So if you haven't found your cinnamon roll recipe yet, I have to say, Rachel Tufel, she has done a lot of wonderful things on Craftsy. This is probably a recipe that would be worth giving a try. So the link has been dropped into the chat box for anybody that's interested in adding that to their traditions. Reminder again, before we say goodbye, this is reviewable at any time. So if you missed any of ZJ's tips, or you just want to revisit them later, or see any of those nice detailed photos with the different ideas that she shared, come back to this link. This video will be available for review, and it will have all of the information that you need to get your Christmas in July started, so you could be crafting all the way to your holiday crafting gifts and designs and decorations. That's enough from me. We are kicking off Christmas in July, so continue to join us through the entire month at Craftsy. We are done with today's, but of course we will be back for more. So on behalf of ZJ and the entire Craftsy team, thank you so much for joining us. Check out all of those links in the description. Enter for your chance to win this Stella 2, and of course, come back next time for more Christmas in July tips and tricks. Thank you so much. My name is Leah, and until the next time, happy crafting.